Okay, math application students, here we go. We want to find out, we're going to be talking about exponential inverse functions. And so what is an inverse? An inverse is when you have an equation and you switch the x with the y and the y with the x. So let's look at this first example. We have y equals 5x. Okay, if I was going to graph that, I've got a slope of 5. When x is 0, y is 0. When x is 1, y is going to be 5. When x is negative 1, y is going to be negative 5. So we're going to get a line that looks like this, right? This is the line y equals 5x. Alright, so if I'm going to find the inverse, I'm going to change the y into an x and the x into a y. So let's do that. I have x equals 5y. And now let's solve for y. So in order to solve for y, what you do is we'd have to divide both sides by 5, and then we would end up with x over 5 equals y, right, if we divide both sides by 5. So if I have y equals x over 5, now we can say we found the inverse. And so one way we would write this is f to the negative 1 like this equals x over 5. And this is how we write inverse functions. Now let's graph this equation. Y equals 1/5 x, right? Okay, so how do I graph y equals 1/5 x? So we have a slope of 1/5. So when x equals 1, when x equals 0, y is 0. What about when x is 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Y is going to be 5 divided by 5. Y is going to be 1. And when x is negative 5, y is going to be negative 1. And if I graph that line, it looks like this. So the thing that you should maybe have noticed before when you took Algebra 2 is the inverse here is always a reflection on the line y equals x. So if I reflected this over here, this is the same distance as it is to here. Okay, so this is a reflection on the line y equals x. Okay, so let's do some more investigation. So let's pretend I've got the equation y equals 10 to the x. So first of all, so what 10 to the power of 1 is equal to 10, right? 10 squared is 10 times 10, which is 100. 10 cubed, 10 times 10 times 10 is going to give me 1,000. 10 to the 4th is going to give me 10,000. 10 to the 5th is going to give me 100,000, right? Okay, so if I want to rewrite this in log form, then I would say x equals log base 10 y. Whenever we were switching, then we would rearrange it like this. Now let's see, just hold this in mind. If I type into the calculator log 10, what do we get? Where's log? Here we go. Log 10, we get 1. What about if I type in log 2? Oops, no, sorry. Log 100, what do we get? 2. What if I type in log 1000? We get 3. What about if I do log 10,000? We get 4. And if we do log 100,000, we get 5. Okay, now if we have log with no base written here, by default it's got a base of 10. That's why I wrote 10 really tiny here. Okay, so what happens here is if I'm doing an inverse of this function, we can switch the x with the y and the y with the x, and we would get x equals 10 to the y power. And if I have this, and we want to solve for y, we would rearrange this as this way. Okay, so let's look at this here. If I've got y equals e to the x power, we would write this as, let's just try this. E, where is it on the calculator? E to the power 2 equals 7.389. E to the power of 3 equals 20.0855. E to the power of 4 equals 54.598. The last one, e to the power of 5, 148.413. Okay, now, what if I want to rearrange this in log form? Then I would say x equal log base e of this value here. So if this so if I've got log base e of 7.389. Oh, if we have log base e on the calculator, that is written as, this means natural log. Okay, and so if I've got natural log of 7.389, we're going to get natural log 7.389. Guess what we get? Let's just call this 2. Okay, this equals 2. And if I do natural log of 20.0855, natural log 20.0855, we're going to get, let's just call that 3. And if I do natural log of 54.598, we're going to get 4. If I get natural log of 148.413, we're going to get 5. Okay, so let's do an example. Okay, so when you're asked to find the inverse, we're asked to switch the x with the y and y with the x. So let's first do that. So now I've got x equals 2 log base e y minus 3. And now we want to solve for y. Okay, so if we're going to solve for y, first thing we need to do is we need to add the 3 on both sides. And then I get x plus 3 equals 2 log base e y. Okay, Now the next step, I'm going to divide both sides by 2, and then I get x plus 3 over 2 equals log base e y. And then the final step is we convert to natural log here, and we get y equals e to the power of x plus 3. Okay, this is the last assignment of the year. Try your best on this, and if you don't do so well in it, don't worry, we'll be checking this back in the fall.